All right, guys. So now in the last lesson, I left you with our very simple loop layout that actually doesn't look that bad yet if we're looking at the preview here, but it's still a bit of a far cry away from this beautiful layout that we have going on here. So we have to do a few things. And what we're going to do is we're going to, from the top down, style each of these elements to better reflect what we've got over here. So we'll start with the section, and then we'll work our way into the row, and then the individual modules that we're dealing with here. So I think the best to do is to just get right into it and stop talking too much. So I'm going to hop on the back end of our Divi site here with my classified loop layout open already. And we will just first dive in and open up the section settings. Now, with our section settings open, we don't really need to be doing anything within the content tab here. But what we're going to be interested in is the design tab, since right now we're going to be styling all of these elements that we added to the page. First up, what we're going to want to do is take a look at the sizing here, and to ensure that this entire loop layout takes out the full width of the space available to it, we're going to want to put this to 100% width and 100% max width. And that's really all we need to do with the sizing. Next up, we're going to take a look at the spacing, and maybe we can have this open because we'll kind of see some of this stuff happen as we're going here. Now, first thing we want to do is we're going to want to put 0 bottom margin. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to control the spacing underneath each loop, because you can affect all of the different spacing options here. You do have some other options within archive loop module, but we're going to control this from the actual loop area. So hopping back here, we also want to take away the top and bottom padding. So we'll just make that 0 and 0. So now we kind of see things coming together a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is move on to the border. Now we've got this nice rounded border here that I think looks pretty good and kind of suits the aesthetic of our site. So let's get back here, and I don't know, let's go with 50 pixels. And that's maybe a little bit too round for what we're doing here. So I'm going to go something much more subtle and go with 10. And that gives us a nice even curve around there. Now for the other border settings, we don't need to be worrying about the border width or the color or anything, because we're not going to be adding anything there. What we are interested in, though, however, is going to be the box shadow here. Now, the box shadow is, of course, this kind of nice aesthetic on the edges here that we get. And it looks like we've got the bottom shadow going on. So that is the third option in the top row. And now we can kind of see those round corners popping out a little bit more. And I think that looks really nice. Maybe what we want to do is just adjust some of the parameters here on the shadow, because I know that once we start throwing it here into our site, we don't want our shadow to be getting into the space of the other loops or the other layouts in the loop. So we're going to just kind of rein it in a little bit. So we're going to make this 15. Our strength is going to be 20. And you can see how this changes live right here on the left-hand side. And then we're going to make this spread -10. So you can see that it doesn't get out that far away. If I made the spread higher, you see how it gets cut off on the edges there. That's what we're avoiding by doing this. And then lastly, we are going to be using our blue color for the shadow. And we will probably be using that at maybe around 15% opacity. So you just drag this down to about 15. All the way. There we go. And now we've got this more subtle shadow effect here. And that is looking pretty good, I think. So moving on, we of course make sure this is outer box shadow. Now we've got this transform effect that happens when we are hovering over this. And what's happening here is that this is actually just being scaled a little bit larger when we're hovering over it. So to get that effect, all we need to do is go to transform here. And we need to activate the hover settings. And then for the hover state of the element, we just want to go ahead and tell it to go to, I don't know, maybe about 105%. Let's type in 105 there. And then we can see that kind of kicks in immediately. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's update this. And I want to see what this looks like on the front end really quick and see if this is acting as we expect it to. All right, so there we go. We've got our nice rounded edges. We're getting the scaling effect. So I think we're doing pretty good so far as recreating that layout. We can also see that the spacing has been improved between the different elements here on my page. So that's a good start. So let's hop back in here. Now, continuing on here with our sectional set, we're going to continue to the row, and let's just make this small again because I think it's helpful to see some of the things we're going to be doing here. If I go into the first row setting, so that part that's going to contain our image and those other elements that we will eventually move over the image, we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of breathing room. So to do that, we open up the row settings, we go to design, and then now for sizing, you can see here that it's at 80% width. What we're going to want to do is make that 100. And now you can kind of see that's popping in there a little bit better. And just in case the image at some point is not large enough, you want to pop that in the middle so that it does get aligned in the middle, or the row itself stays in the middle. And what we want to take a look at as well is take a look at the spacing. So when we get to the spacing here, we want to eliminate all the spacing at the top and bottom, as well as the padding at the top and bottom. Now you kind of see how the image is now fitting itself into the space that we've created with those rounded corners. So that looks pretty aesthetically pleasing, and I think that is looking good. We're not going to be adding any borders or anything funny like that, no shadows. And that is all we really need to do for our row here. So I'm going to go ahead and save our row. So next up, some of the things we can't really see right now, so I'm going to have to do it this way. Let's go into the thumbnail settings here and start taking a poke around. But as I scroll through here, I can kind of see that we really don't need to be doing anything. We don't have an overlay. There's no text involved. I mean, you can set this to the middle, again, just for that same reason that we did it earlier on the row itself. But there's no sizing or anything like that that we need to change. There's none of these other settings. So I think our image is pretty okay as we are right now. The thing we are interested in, however, is going to be this ACF item module, where we are capturing the status of the item and then overlaying it here in the top left corner. Now, you might think that it's hard to do. It's actually much easier than you might think using just the normal Divi settings. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is, I think, go back down, because if we look over here, it's got that white background color. So let's scroll down. Oh, no, not image, to the background. Now, for the background, we'll just set that as white explicitly. And we don't see the text right now, but I bet if we come over here right now and then go to the text, not that one, but the actual item text, we can go ahead and make it that blue color, and it should be working fine. You're not going to see it right now. And then we're going to set that to semi-bold. Now, we want to make sure that this is indeed working. So let me save this. And, oh goodness, up here, save it again. And just wait for that to load. And then we'll pop here on the front and reload. And now we can see the text has taken on that blue color there. So it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Hopping back here, I'm going to open this up again. It really doesn't help us because we can't really see it because that module is not fully visual builder compatible, but that's okay. We'll work around it. So opening up that ACF module settings again, we'll go to design. And next up, we are going to go ahead and change that text size a bit. So let's just make that 16 pixels. We're not going to be adding any type of shadow or anything. There's no labels involved here. So we're not going to be worrying about that too much. But what we will want to do, though, is create it a little bit of room here. So let's go to the spacing. I'm going to give it padding top and bottom of about 10 pixels. And no, I'm not some genius that knows this. I tested this before and knows that that will work quite nicely. Might even add some left and right spacing of maybe 15 pixels. We'll take a look at what that's like. That one I actually guessed. And then we'll also look at the border here. Now let's put a nice rounded border of 25 pixels so it has that nice round shape that we've got going on right here. And then we are going to want to make sure that we have it positioned in the right spot. Now, the way that we do that is we come over here to the Advanced tab, And Divi has this awesome position setting where you can actually move this around the screen. And now what you're going to want to do is give it an absolute position. So it goes in the top left corner here. So you're going to go ahead and select absolute. You see how it kind of defaults to the top left. And what that's going to do is, depending on the alignment of the text and stuff, it's going to go closest to the top left based on that alignment. And then what you also want to give it is a little bit of room there, though. So we're going to give it 10 pixels and another 10 pixels of space. So I think we're ready to try this again and see whether this worked out good on the front end. I'm going to save that. Now I can go on the front end on my layout here. I can refresh the page. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So we have our lost tag and found tag, or whatever the case might be for this. But you guys see the issue here, right? When I hover it, it disappears. And that is something to do with the Z index. So when I come back here and I open up my ACF item module for that status, I am going to go and scroll down back to position. And you guys see the Z index option down here. Just give it 4 nines in there. That should be enough to give it priority over that hovered image. So let me come and refresh this one more time. And now when I hover, it doesn't go anywhere. And we are looking pretty good, man. I'm really loving the look of this so far. And in a short amount of time, we finished this entire upper section where we have the visual component. Now, next we're getting to the data or the information on the post. You can see that we've got some funky hover things happening with the button, so we're going to fix that right now as well. But first, let's get busy with the title here. Now, hopping back here, I will just use my mobile mode again. And I am going to go into the settings. Oh, that's the price module. That's my bad. Let me just come in this mode. When you can't see the modules, so just switching to this view will be better. Let's open up the settings. Now I'm going to change this to a H2 tag just because I think that's a better size. So when I go to design, let's go to the title text. And now here, we're going to give this also a little bit more oomph and give it a semi-bold. We're going to make sure that it's centered on our screen, and we're going to give it that blue color that we like. And the text size and stuff like that looks fine to me. I don't think we need to get into that a bit more. We don't need any shadows or stuff like that. I think we can just go ahead and save that and then go on. Okay, so we're moving on to this meta value of the item type, right? So we already have that set up to display the text, but we want to get a little bit deeper here. And we are going to go in and open up the post meta module. Now we already added our taxonomy here. That's great. So when we go into this, and let me pull this down a bit and see if this is going to work nice for me. I don't think it will, but we can give it a try. When we scroll down to the specific settings, you can show the value as a button. Yeah, and as you can see, it's not working right now, but that's fine. We can then go and style that button just as you would any other button. So we go to design settings here. Here we have button meta value. So we'll go in there and we'll add some custom styles. Okay, so now for text size, I think we'll go up to 13 pixels. Our text color will be white. And then we're going to make the background here our lovely orange color. Now, just to prove that we actually did do something here, let me drag this up a bit. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that. And this is why this was important to create that, demo test loop page, just so that you can keep coming back and seeing exactly what things will be looking like. So now it's refreshing and there we go. Okay, this is looking pretty decent. It's in there as a button. The only thing we need to change is that we don't want that, I don't know what you want to call it, the rounding on the button. So let's come back here. We'll go into the post meta. We'll go to taxonomy. We'll go to design, and then we'll go to the button value. And where is the border radius? We want to make that explicitly 0. That should be good. The rest, I think, should be okay. Let's save that. Let's save that. And let's update that. Okay, there we go. Our situation is all fixed. Now, the last thing we want to do is put this right in the middle, right? So that it is right underneath the name. And you see how my mouse, when I hover it here, kind of makes you want to click onto it. That would take you to an archive page, actually, for electronics. We're not going to be building an archive page for this in this course, but if you wanted to, you're welcome to go ahead. But I'll show you a quick line of code that would completely disable that button but we'll get to that in another moment here. So let's come back here. Let's open up our post meta, taxonomy, design. Okay, so coming up to center that button, it's actually in the meta item text, and we'll just make sure to center that right there. Now, I mentioned how to disable the actual clicking of the button. You'll just come here to advanced, custom CSS, and then main element. And what you would do is type in pointer dash events colon none semicolon. And we'll add this in the course notes below also, but just so you know, that this would basically just make that the mouse doesn't do anything when you hover that item. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that. I'm going to drag my face out of the way and come up here and update. I actually didn't need to do that, but I'll move me back down. And then we'll come here to the loop layout test page. I'll refresh. And now you can see it's in the middle and I can't click it. It doesn't do anything. And that is exactly what I wanted to do. Great. So now we get to go to the content that we have here. So let's get into that. So to get into that, let's hop on the back end again and open up our post content module. And here we've got the content, we've got the word count and all that fun stuff. Good to go. We really, if we look over here, it seems like it's just centered and that it's got a little bit of a lighter text color. And that we can very easily do by just going to the design tab. We will go to the content text. We're going to keep all this the same because remember, we configured our fonts at the beginning, and that's why we don't have to keep doing it. We're going to set the text alignment to center. Now, I'm going to start with this darker blue color of ours, but then I'm going to lighten it up by just moving it up quite a bit. Around here, I think that's pretty good. We can play with it a bit if we don't feel that looks right. Let's update that. I will be doing this a lot throughout the course, so update look. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit too blue for me. So I am going to go and modify that again. So I will come back down, go to the post content module, and I will actually include a color here for you that we'll use for this text color, as it is a little bit more gray. So I'm going to go back to design, content, text, click on that. I'm going to paste that in there. It's 899582. I know that'll be up on the screen for you, so you don't need to jot that down really quickly. And that is all we need to do because as you guys can see, our text is nicely in the middle and we have a good start going here. Now, next up, we need to modify this line and maybe even give the text a little bit of space there. What do you think? Yeah, let's come back to our layout here. Let's just open up this content again. And then once in here, we'll go to design, we'll go to spacing, and we will give it, let's say 10 pixels of bottom padding, and that should be pretty okay. So let's save that up. Let's update what we've got going on and just make sure that this is indeed how we want it to look. Okay, cool. We've got a little bit more breathing room over there. So let's tackle this divider line right here right now. And we have the dashed style, and then we've got our blue color, it looks like right there. So we're going to come in, we're going to head over. Actually, before we get to the divider line, I think we need to tackle the ACF item for the pricing, of course, because I completely forgot about that. So let's get into that. So for the pricing, we have configured all of this already and just need to work on the styling, right? So we're going to go to design, and first we're going to look at the image and icon, and we can see that we've got the, well, here we can't see, we just need to scroll down a little, and you can see that we're using an orange icon and we're using that throughout. So let's go ahead and come back here. We've already got our icon color on orange, so that's good to go. If yours is not set to that yet, get that in there. And then I think we'll use an icon font size and just make it a little bit larger to be about 20 pixels, and I think that is going to look pretty good. So next up, we are going to make sure that all of this is center aligned, and then take a look at the item text. Now, what we want to do again is we're going to make this semi-bold, and again, we will center this and we'll make the actual text our blue color, and that should start looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and update this and move down here to where we've got some actual text with a for sale product. Okay, so we got some work to do on the icon here. So that is what we'll tackle next. But to do that, we actually won't be doing it here on the actual layout, what we need to do is add a little bit of code to the Divi theme option. So I'm going to open that up in a new tab. And then remember in the beginning, I said we're going to be utilizing this in the beginning of the course. This is going to be the first time. So I'm going to paste some code here. And what this is doing, it's targeting the ACF item module, of course, for Divi Machine. And then it's looking at the content and it's making sure that we're center aligning that. So we're doing that with two things, is with this center setting and then the width auto setting on there. So when I save this, and don't worry about it, I'll be putting the code in the course notes. So don't stress out if you need to type this out really quickly. You can pause the video or you can refer to the course notes. Coming back here, I'll refresh this again. And there you go. Now we have it nicely in the middle. I see I still need to do a little bit of work on the text size here. So to do that, I just hop back here. I go to that ACF item module, go to design, I go to item text, and I just bump this up to about 20. And I think that is going to be exactly what we want right here for that one. So we can go ahead and move on finally to styling the divider. So for the divider, we're going to come in here. We're going to go to design. We're going to hit the line. And then now it's got the orange color for the line. And that orange color is coming from the accents that we set in chapter 2 of the course, 2 or 3. But in the beginning of the course, we're just going to set it to the blue. We're going to give it the dashed appearance. And I like to put the line vertically centered. So let's see what happens when I go ahead and enact that and commit those settings. I'm going to go here to my loop test page and then refresh. And that's looking pretty good so far. Very similar to what we built out in the full site. So I am pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with the spacing. Yeah, that looks good to me. So next, we just go ahead and tackle the location, the Google Maps portion of it. So let's come back in here. And I know this is a long chapter, guys, but this is all very valuable. You guys are doing great. Just bear with me. Now, for that location, we are just going to go ahead again and open up the ACF item module. We're going to go to the design section. We're going to set it to be center aligned. We're going to go to the item text. We're also going to be center aligning that. We're not going to be messing with the font weights and stuff like that. I think we'll be pretty happy with the result as is. So let's save that. Let's update it. And there you go. We've got it right in the middle. I think it's nice and clear where it is. The last thing we need to tackle in this lesson is finally just that view post button. That's going to be super easy to do because we already have most of the work done. We just need for it to not make that square text on the edge. And maybe we can bump down that text size a little. That's what we did here. It's really up to you the way that you want it. I think I might add some padding here on the bottom section of this location. So let's quickly do that, going into the settings for the ACF item module. And when we go to spacing here, I might just go ahead and add 10 pixels of padding and then go ahead and save that. And let's tackle that button really quickly. We open up the button settings and we go to design, we go to button, and we're going to say use custom styles for the button. And I think this will actually be able to see. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, we already know that the button's going to be full width, right? So all we really need to be worried about here is going ahead and set some custom styles for the button. So we're going to click on that. The text size, let's go ahead and make that 14. Text color is not going to change. None of this is going to change. The background, all that will be going with the defaults. Now, the thing we are worried about here is the border radius. We're going to click on hover, the hover settings for the border radius. We'll go to the hover here and you see how it bumps down to 0 pixels. We'll just add that 50 back in there. We'll save it. We'll save it again. We'll update the page depending on which button you want to use. We'll go back to the front end, reload. And now when we're hovering our buttons, it's looking much, much better. It's looking a lot more familiar. I think I want to create a little bit of space at the top and the bottom so we can go back here. We'll go into the view post button module design, and you guessed it, spacing. And maybe just add, I don't know, 5 pixels padding at the top and bottom. Let's update that and see what that does. Okay, refresh. That didn't do much. So we're going to double up and we're going to make it 10 pixels. Now, guys, I know going back and forth and saving and looking and saving and looking, that's a little annoying to me too, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we are in the process of making everything involved with Divi Machine fully Visual Builder compatible. Sorry. And what I just realized, and that's where the pause was, is that here with the button padding, I didn't put it in there. Where did I put it? I put it in spacing by accident. So I'm going to go back down to spacing. And this 5 pixels I put in there, I'm going to delete that out. So I'm going to save that, I'm going to update that. And that's why I did nothing. Very smart. Well done, Roby. Refresh the page. And that's good. I'm happy with that result. And just like that, guys, look at it. We've got our loop completed. It looks exactly the way we want it to. But the selling price is not showing on products that don't have selling prices, so that's working perfectly correct. And I think we are ready to move on to bigger and greater things. So thank you for bearing with me in this lesson. I know it was a long one, so definitely go get a break if you want to do that. We're going to be continuing on here in a little bit, and we're going to start building out the various pages involved with the classifieds website. We're going to be dealing with a theme builder. We're going to be dealing with archive pages. We're going to create single classified post pages, a lot of good stuff. So thank you for being here. I'm going to catch you guys in the next lesson.